you'd mentioned when the 8 Trace formed. Now, how did you guys become Crips?
I was already a Crip. We were West Side Crips. And the ones that was West Side, we stayed on 83rd down around in that corridor. So we already were Crips. We just took our own group because we're not out the hundreds. I ran up in there, ran all around like I do now with everybody, but I wasn't from there. So they couldn't tell me what to do. I got my own crew. So what I'm going to be up there for, and we all together at this time. So when Monk made his, we can do our thing too.
Okay. You'd mentioned knowing Tookie.
Mm-hmm.
So what was Tookie like back then?
Well, as far as the image, Tookie's the Clark Gable as far as the face of the Crips. He's Clark Gable. Because Raymond Washington's legacy is kind of tainted because he went to prison 71, 72, 70, somewhere right up in there and didn't get out. And this was the pivotal years when the Crips, who had never been heard from or known until the Robert Ballou murder happened in 1972. I believe that was March 1972 at the Palladium. That's when the Crips were formally known in this community of Los Angeles, because at that time, only thing that was going on was Soul Train, gang banging, and pop locking in 1972. So then the Crips went, but as far as Tookie, he could be a character. I've seen him slap cats and knock them out. I've seen him laugh and joke. I've seen him profile. And their character and their demeanor is what they call swagger now. They had swagger back then. When they ran, they walked. And then and all of them was on swole. And Tookie, I never seen him with a gun. But after he got shot in Compton, then he went and bought that shotgun. Other than that, those guys that were 18 when we 14 and 15, they couldn't afford too much to do what we could do, because we getting 2 years for a murder, sent back home for carjacking, get caught with a gun, they give it back. So the most violent acts we commit, robbery or whatever, they believed in rehabilitation. That's why we could go to jail 30-some times between the ages of 1971 to 75. That's when we turned 18. So by that time, that's when they made the juvenile fitness in, which affects all these youths of today, what's behind the behavior of the youths, because they seen that rehabilitation wasn't working. So at the end of the day, Tookie was like the face of the Crips, but a lot of times he getting it like Tookie was telling people what to do. That's not true. Nobody could tell these youngsters what to do. No more different than you could tell a youngster nowadays. But in our era, we didn't have nobody. It wasn't OG 64 years old. The most you might see, and then also when you seen Tookie and them in their early years, it might not be but 4 or 5 of them. There wasn't no big pack of them. The Crips hadn't formed on the West Side. They didn't form until the murder happened at the Palladium, and all of those that went were from St. Andrews Park on our side of town. All those that were convicted. So that kind of scared or brought attention to the older ones that could get a life sentence, and most of them backed down, and that's when the youth started taking over, and we knew what to do. They didn't have to tell us. They'll be there. The docs, the Donald, Raymond Washington, and all them. That's before he went, because I had knew Raymond at 14 before he went to prison too, where I had met him with Big Jack, so I knew Raymond at 14. Then when Raymond got out, 76, 77, that was the long table before the murder happened with Jimmy Celestine. Raymond was coming over my house. In fact, I was with Raymond a couple of days before he got executed or killed, back then in 79. I was with Tookie couple of days where I'm telling him, man, I think this guy here got information and you need to watch it, and they came and arrested him coming out that house. So I know them both quite well, and I really miss them. But at the end of the day, one died on the streets, The other one died by the state in jail. And that's usually what happens when you sign up and get into this. You're going to either end up in the graveyard or penitentiary yard. Very few are successful that made it to this age to get up out. And then in LA, you can't get up out the game because they shoot anybody anywhere at any time. That's just, it is what it is.
Do you have a favorite memory with Tookie?
Yeah. Well, I got a lot of them. They can be the ones that ain't favorite, but as far as one that everybody know about, if you really been about that, it's the one where we was at the Forum one night. Everybody all there, I think it might have been Michael Jackson or something, all of them on stage, Marvin Gaye maybe, 73, 74. And you got Tookie and Jamel. They posing over with their overalls, greased up, and they posing on each other. And the stage cameras and everybody, they stopped the singing to put the spotlight on them, and they just went to posing. And while everybody in the arena was watching them pose, about 40 of us went in section off of section. Back then we wore derbies, and we lined that section down where nobody could get out. And we robbed everybody down that section where we put that hat down there. And at the end of that hat, you better have what's in your pockets, your wallet, and everything in there. That's what we do.
Damn.
You might go to the Forum and you got 200-300 Crips there. When we move deep. Go to Watts Festival. The Watt Stacks, when they ended that, I was there. The Proud Bird, the Kappa House, the Showcase, the Warehouse. All these places were for youth to go, for us to, and we'd go against Soul Train dancers when the Crip Walk come out, because we wasn't Crip Walking. That had to be born and came in too, because they got the dance contests for $50 where they clap. You put their hand over your head. You got the Soul Train dancers here. You got the Pop Lockers from Lock here, and you got the Crips, us standing around here. And we had to learn to dance because they dance in couple. And so it was an experience where now, in hindsight, it's a lot of historical stuff that went on back then over these last 50 years.
What were the biggest changes amongst the gangs in LA after the Crips formed?
When we formed, we were unified. So you can ask me, what's the biggest change in the Crips? And that'd be the proper question. It's that they fight each other. That's the biggest change. Other than that, what is there to talk about? Either you with each other or you're not. So for me, the biggest change was when they split up and they started fighting, not splitting up, fighting each other, because I'm going to know if we all were together and most of these guys had started these sets and stuff, that means we're going to know at my age now, we're going to know their grandsons, their uncles, their nieces and nephews. So it's very few people that get hurt in this city that I don't know their families. I don't know their families. Very hard for me not to know any youth that get killed from anywhere up in here on my west side of town where I ain't gonna be able to call and say, and they might say, oh man, that was Pat's son. And Pat might have went to school with me. Melvin, that picture you put up, he killed my brother. Melvin, he did this. I get that a lot of times. So it's not a glamorous life. That's why I don't really, I told you today, I don't really care about talking. I let Bob Marv up here. You ask for me. But usually when I'm on the show, I don't like to sit up and talk about my past. It ain't nothing nice. It's not.